This is the Decoding Obesity podcast, where we simplify, demystify, and decode obesity, helping you lose weight and feel great. So gear up for a fascinating journey through this ever-evolving field, and let's see what we find. And please remember that the thoughts and opinions on this podcast do not constitute medical advice. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. And now, here's your host of the Decoding Obesity podcast, Dr. Avishkar Sabharwal.
Hello, everyone. There has been a recent trend towards integrating ancient Eastern techniques of healing, like yoga and meditation, into modern medicine. Of late, there has been a heightened interest in using meditation in the management of several chronic diseases, with many studies suggesting adjunctive benefit of the same. A recent study suggests that transcendental meditation may be extremely useful in secondary prevention of coronary heart disease and may reduce cardiovascular events by as much as 48% over a 5-year period. I am pleased to welcome Dr. Yashoda Bhaskar to discuss this further. Dr. Bhaskar is a board-certified internist and a hospitalist with a passion for lifestyle medicine. She has been in practice for almost 20 years. She is also a certified Vipassana meditation teacher. Dr. Bhaskar is currently preparing to become a certified diplomat in lifestyle medicine this fall. She is also pursuing certification in life coaching and money mindset coaching. She hopes to work with fellow women physicians who have unique struggles in medicine around burnout, sexism, and discrimination. In her spare time, she loves to read by the beach, go for long walks, and listen to motivating, empowering podcasts and audiobooks. She also enjoys yoga and Zumba. Hi, Yashoda. Welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Avishkar. Thank you for having me as your guest.
Thank you so much for coming on my show.
You're welcome.
Before we begin, a friendly reminder to all our listeners. I am looking to interview people who have had success with weight loss. Individual struggles and successes will be inspiring and beneficial for all the listeners. So if you or someone you know has had success with weight loss, please email me at host@decodingobesity.com. That is HOST@decodingobesity.com. So Yashoda, there is a lot of mysticism around meditation. Can you tell us what exactly are mindfulness and meditation?
Avishkar, all my life, I feel like my job has been to take really complex concepts and make them as simple as possible to explain to lay people. We physicians have like this language of our own, right? We throw words around like cabbage and
Right.
aortic stenosis and whatnot, and patients just look at us like, what the heck are they talking about? And I want to bring the same sort of philosophy to mindfulness and meditation. You are right. There are a lot of misconceptions out there about it. I've had people say, I can't meditate. I can't sit still for 5 minutes. I can't empty my mind. I can't just stop my thoughts from coming. I get fidgety. I get anxious. Or they would say things like, it brings up feelings in me that I just don't want to face. They don't quite say it like that, but they're like, oh, it just makes me uncomfortable, right? Like it makes me
Right.
uncomfortable to sit with myself. And so I actually started looking into meditation/mindfulness more than 20 years ago, actually, almost right
Wow.
when I started practicing.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. How did you get started with all of this?
Yeah. I actually came across John Kabat-Zinn and MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, his program almost 20 some years ago. And it very informally actually sort of did it on my own for 8 weeks and took some meditation classes locally and stuff like that. So I've had some touch. But to come back to your original question, really meditation and mindfulness, and there's some overlap there, is basically the process of sitting with whatever comes up in the moment. Okay? Being non judgmental, being comfortable, not trying to get away from it, not trying to get towards it. There's no goal setting here. And as humans, I think we find that concept very hard, right? We always think when
Yeah,
I do something, it needs to produce an outcome. So if I go
correct.
into the kitchen and cook, the outcome is food that I put in my mouth. If I go to work, the outcome is I make money so I can, take care of my family.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think meditation is so unique because there is literally no outcome that you're looking for. Okay.
Right.
And I think that's why the concept is so hard for people to understand. They're like, but
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be doing something. It's like, no, no, this is
you're
one
not supposed to be
activity.
doing anything.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so when you started, you said you started about 20 years ago, right?
hmm
How do you think it has helped you in your day-to-day life?
I don't know that I would have survived without meditation. I'm
Wow.
just going to put it like that. As a physician, we go through so much stress. Everybody goes through stress.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that sitting in the morning 5 to 10 minute practice, I think I literally would have gone crazy. I'm a very hyper person. It's very hard to like pin me down. I don't sit still for even a few minutes. And so the forcing of myself in a way in the beginning, right now it comes
Right.
naturally to me. But in the beginning, I would find 55,000 excuses why not to sit on my meditation, right?
I've tried it, and it's not easy when you begin
No,
doing it, because you have to just sit down and kind of
nothing.
do nothing. It's very difficult.
Yes, yes,
And then and then you're always kind of looking for an outcome when you're doing this. And in the beginning it can be very difficult because you're not really achieving an outcome, because there is no goal that you've set.
exactly,
The goal essentially is just to sit and do nothing.
exactly, exactly. Yes.
So how do you think it can help people with obesity?
Well, I think it's all interrelated and interconnected because what happens gradually over time when you persist is you actually will start observing your thoughts. You start realizing that you are not your thoughts, you are not your actions, you are not anything that, we have this idea in our mind, or, what the Buddhist terms are, they call it ego, right? And so we have this identity, this personality, like I'm a doctor, I'm a wife, I'm a, blah blah blah. And over time, what happens when you just sit on your cushion for 5 to 10 minutes, do nothing, maybe focus on your breathing, thoughts will come up, you come back to your breathing, is you're able to take it off the cushion into your life. And so what happens is when you put that distance between your true inner self and this identity or persona that we have created over time, you start really almost automatically making choices that are good for you, whether it's in the food choices you make, the shopping choices you make, what you're going to say to your wife if she gets mad at you. There's that, what Viktor Frankl calls the space between reaction and response, right? Or and that's the subtle magic of meditation.
Yeah, so I came across a systemic review whose results suggested that mindful meditation is actually effective and decreases binge eating and emotional eating.
Definitely.
And interestingly, there was a randomized controlled trial done to see if meditation has any effect on short-term weight loss. So what they did was very interesting. So they compared meditation along with the standard behavioral weight loss program versus just standard behavioral weight loss program. And what they found was that with the mindful meditation added to the behavioral weight loss program, there was about a 2.8 kilogram more weight loss in the short term, of course, compared to the standard behavioral modification for weight loss. And they thought it's primarily related to the improvements in the eating behaviors and the dietary restraint. So people had a better dietary restraint and better control over themselves with the meditation added. So yeah, so it's very interesting because this is one of those ancient things that initially got sidelined by modern medicine, and now we're rediscovering this thing. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to kind of see this concept come into medicine,
Right.
and using this actually as a part of therapy.
Right. Right. Totally. The other connection I would say between meditation and obesity is over time, we have a lot of negative self talk. right? A lot of people have we would not talk to a neighbor or a friend or a family sometimes the way we talk to ourselves. We beat ourselves
Yeah,
up a
I
lot.
think we are our worst
We
critics.
are our worst critics. And I think what happens again, that aspect changes too, because when you think about like eating disorders or disordered eating, if you will, not necessarily anorexia or bulimia, maybe not clinically significant, but just in general, it's because of negative self-talk. And what happens when you sit with yourself and, like I said, you make that distance between, what you call your atma, right? That's what we call it in India, your soul or your true inner self, and you realize that your ego or your persona, your id, is different from who you are, which is basically we are all good beings. We're all created by the same creator. You actually develop the self-love, you develop compassion for yourself, you're willing to give yourself a break. And so then what happens is when you reach for that bag of potato chips or ice cream or whatever, you go, is this good for me? I'm nourishing myself, right? And so when you develop that self-love and compassion and being okay with yourself and saying, you're a flawed human being, but that's okay, you're trying every day. That's what it did for me, is it gave me permission to be human. And yeah, I tripped up sometimes and, did stupid things or made the wrong choices. But over time, again, you're training your that mind body connection. And I think that is the power of meditation is, you don't realize that you're actually setting a goal, but you are setting a goal, which is to improve yourself overall, right? That's the goal eventually of pretty much anything we do. But you don't sit on the cushion with that conscious thought that I'm doing this to improve all aspects of my life, including my weight or, whatever else might be going on.
So, yeah, in a sense, you're kind of basically creating a space between your emotions and yourself and taking that space to understand how your emotions are playing into whatever activities you're doing or whatever actions you're taking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Listeners, if this is your first time tuning in, I encourage you to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening so that you can get notified as soon as the new episodes are released. Yashoda, coming back to this topic of meditation, I have been fascinated by this, for the longest time. However, it's very difficult for me to sit down even for 5 minutes and do this. And I'm sure, like you had mentioned, you would have come across a lot of myths and objections from people and excuses. I shouldn't use the word excuses probably, but a lot of objections because people have preconceived notions about meditation, especially from your patients. What were the common objections and these preconceived notions that you came across, and how did you try and convince them to kind of think the other way?
Okay. So let's flip the question and do it another way. Okay. I'm
Okay.
actually going to lead you guys through a session right now.
Great,
Okay.
great.
Ready
Perfect.
for it?
Yes.
Okay. So I would say wherever you are, whoever is listening to this podcast, just stop doing whatever you're doing, well, except listening to the podcast, and
And
just get
except
really
driving. If
comfortable.
you're driving, except driving.
Yes, except driving. If you're driving, don't do this. Maybe do this once you get home and you're in a safe space. So get really comfortable. You could be sitting on a cushion, on a chair. You could be lying down. It doesn't matter what position you're in. And I would ask you to just close your eyes and put your hands in your lap. Any position that's comfortable for you. Your hands can be turned up, down, crossed. Just get really comfortable. And if you're sitting in a chair, make sure your feet are planted on the earth firmly. Feel the grounding of your feet on the floor, your seat on the cushion or the chair that's holding you. Just really tune into your body. Just come right back here where you are physically right now. Let the whole world around you just fade away. It's in the background, the sounds, the smells, just everything fading away into the background. It's just you, your body. Relax your forehead, relax your eyes, your mouth, your shoulders, your arms, your legs. Just come right here where you are, right now, this moment. And then, if you can, just notice that you're breathing. What a miracle. We're not even conscious of our breathing throughout the day. And there's no need to try to change your breathing in any way. Just notice air coming in, air flowing out, air coming in, air flowing out. Relax your belly if you're holding it tight. And if your mind is jumping around like a squirrel, that's okay. That's what the mind is supposed to do. When you notice it, however, just bring your attention back to your breathing. In and out of your body, fresh oxygen. We're going to slowly come to an end. Just gradually open your eyes. And you're back in the world.
Wow, that was very relaxing, Yashoda. Thank you. I mean, even while I'm doing this podcast, I could feel it. Certainly feel more relaxed right now.
There you go. That was it. And what was it? Less than 2 minutes? I
Yeah,
don't think it's been 2
yeah,
minutes.
yeah. And it was, yeah. I mean, you see this profound relaxation, almost immediately. I think the important thing is not to criticize yourself while you're doing it, even if you're losing track of, your mind kind of focusing on things. I think that's the key in meditation, at least as far as I understand.
Totally. I think and so this is what I do, Avishka, when patients tell me, I can't do this, I can't, I want to do it, I want to try it. Most of them say that, Dr. B, I really want to try it because I feel like it's going to really help my overall, my stress levels, my health, whatever. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And it was literally less than 2 minutes. And I tell
Right.
them, you can do this for 5 minutes, you know, and the other thing, people have this misconception that they need to sit on the cushion for an hour. They're like, I don't have an hour. I don't have an hour. Right? So
Yeah.
that's another common misconception, that people think it's time related. It really is not. You could do like 3 sessions during the daytime, 2 2-minute sessions, and that's 6 minutes of meditation you got in.
Wow.
Anybody can find 6 minutes in a
That's true.
day,
That is
right?
true. That is true.
I recommend apps a lot. There's one that I really love because it's free and it's got thousands and thousands and thousands of meditations, and it's called Insight Timer, and it's available for both Android and Apple. I like Calm. I like Headspace. Again, the technique itself is really simple, but it's powerful.
Right. And these apps offer a guided meditation, right? How
Correct.
important do you think it is to have a teacher when you're starting meditation or doing meditation?
Yeah. I think accessibility is different for different people, right? I would say in the beginning, it's probably a good idea to listen to a meditation teacher that you really enjoy listening to, that you really connect with. And then over time, you're going to find that you're just able to do it on your own. You develop your own style. For example, the Vipassana meditation that I trained in and I'm certified in is actually an open eye meditation. And I just went through the closed eye right now because people are more familiar with that. But initially, it was very uncomfortable for me to sit on a cushion with my, your eyes are open, but your gaze is down. You're not, you're sort of unfocused. But the philosophy there is we don't walk around in our life with our eyes closed, right? So, how do you get that sense of calm that we just experienced a few minutes ago during our day-to-day life, as the children are screaming and running around, as the pandemic stress is hitting us? How can we tune back into that space, that inner, that quiet space? And you will find that over time you're able to tune into it better and better and better. It's training, right? It's mind training is what we're doing, really. And so when you're having that moment of stress and everything is just like hitting the fan, you can get to it like that, like that three deep breaths, and you're there.
There, okay. It's just about
It's
training,
very
and you
much
get
about
better and
training.
better.
And like every training, like if somebody asked me go run a marathon tomorrow, 5 mile marathon, I'm going to like laugh at them like, are you kidding me? There's no way I can do that, right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah,
The mind is trainable, right? We know about neuroplasticity now,
right.
right? What you focus on grows. And so if this is such an important concept, and now they're teaching meditation in schools. There are actually studies that show instead of putting children in detention, if you teach them meditation, things like ADHD, and all these behavioral, so-called behavioral labels that we give children are actually being taken care of in a much more healthy way. The only thing I'll tell you, we're in a society where we're looking for a quick fix. Give me a pill and fix it. Unfortunately, there is no meditation pill yet. So it does require some work, and consistency is key, just like every other habit and every other practice. I don't care if you sit for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes a day. Hit that cushion or hit that whatever, a designated spot. It's like, how we form habits in our head, right? So for
Right.
me, I roll out of my bed and my meditation cushion is literally by the side of my bed. Like I do that even before I wash my face, brush my teeth, or anything, because I know the minute I leave that space, it's probably gone.
It's gone, yeah.
And so
It's about training your mind to be, and you don't need a specific meditation cushion. It can be anything. It
anything.
can be a chair. It can be anywhere you're sitting. You can essentially do it.
Absolutely. But find a spot, like, because your mind goes, like, when you go to the kitchen, you go to the kitchen to cook or eat, right? You don't go to the kitchen to
Right.
sleep. So,
Right.
so the important thing is have a small, a small corner somewhere, something like an altar helps. For me, I like having like my little objects there. I have a little Buddha statue. It's these things
Sure.
that we train our mind to say, oh, this spot is meant for this task,
This thing,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And when do you think that people can start seeing changes, or when have you seen in your, coaching your students and your patients, when do they really start seeing those changes in their behaviors? Because, like you had mentioned, everybody's looking for a quick fix, and unfortunately, there aren't quick fixes for some of the things like meditation and mindfulness. It takes time
Right.
and practice to develop. But what can people expect in terms of, when should they be expecting to see the results? Because everybody wants, at the end of the day, there is, there is a goal at the end, and that is to achieve, to achieve that state wherein you're more calm and you're okay with yourself, and you're able to tackle your urges, your emotions much better. So when do you see these changes occurring usually? How long does it take?
Okay. So I will give you my meditation teacher's response again, which is there is no goal. The no goal is the goal. Okay.
Okay.
It's a really hard concept for us human beings we should be called human doings, right? We should not
Yeah,
be
we're
just
not being.
everything has to have a goal. Everything has to have, something we're achieving to. The goal of meditation is no goal. I cannot stress it enough. Having said that, shifts happen very subtly. It's one of these things where, like with weight loss or with your bank balance, there's tangible, right? You can
There's
say,
number
oh,
there.
right, I had $100 yesterday and I have $1,000, in a month. Meditation is not like that. It can be so subtle that people like awaken like 6 months later and go, wow, like I don't know when it happened, but it did. My life is so much better now. I can't put my finger on it. I'll tell you, the key is to believe. I think that's what I
Right.
would say. Trust and believe in the process.
I
Okay.
think that's true for medicine anyway, because
True.
50% of it is believing in what is being done, and
Exactly.
that's how it works.
Exactly. But I think, because the skepticism, we talked about that, right? Like,
Right.
in medicine, when we give somebody a beta blocker or a statin, we expect a certain outcome. We know it's going to happen, right? And
Right.
99.9% of the time. With meditation, it's not that. There is that skepticism. Is it going to work for me? Is it not going to work for me? How is it going to work for me? All these questions and doubts arise. So the first thing is to trust that the process works. That's what I meant by that. The second thing is, like I said, consistency. The people who do it consistently, and I'm saying, maybe 5 days a week. You don't have to do it 7 days a week. Like, give yourself a break, right? Even if you do it 5 days a week, and you're not questioning it, you're trusting the process, you're not over analyzing. I think we tend to do that a lot, again, as physicians, and I'm sure engineers do it, lawyers probably do it. We over analyze everything. There is no analysis here. There is just, get on your cushion, pay attention to your breathing, right? Your thoughts will come up. Notice that. Don't get mad at yourself. Okay, the best example I can give you of training your mind is, how do you train your puppy? Right? So you tell your puppy, sit down, and the pup looks at you and goes, yeah, right, it runs away. You bring it back, like, you need to sit, it runs away. You don't get mad at it, you don't yell at it, you don't, curse at it. You're like, it's a puppy, it needs to be trained. That's our
Right.
mind. When you bring that same energy to your mind and to this process and make it fun, the puppy running away is kind of funny, right? Like, we have this
Yeah.
this emotion of joy around it. Oh God, here it goes again. And how long is it going to take me? That sort of, that being willing to be human, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I would say. And the changes do come. I mean, they do. And the more it's like over time, it's like it seems like there's never a peak, right? Like, people who've meditated for 20 years are at
Yeah.
a much sort of higher level of consciousness, if you will, than somebody who's meditated for 10 days.
Right.
So
But you do start seeing the effects, at least the relaxation part of it, almost immediately when you start
immediately,
doing it.
yes,
So at least that part is there.
right.
And over time you can actually start becoming a human being and not a
Yeah,
human doing.
exactly. Exactly. We're training ourselves to be human beings. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So Yashoda, you mentioned that you were trained you're certified in Vipassana meditation, and there are different types of meditation. Does it matter what type of meditation you're doing, or is just about starting?
It's like flavors of ice cream. You just start. Yeah, there is a little bit of experimentation that happens. You mentioned in the beginning of your talk, transcendental meditation, where they give you a specialized mantra. You have to pay thousands of dollars. I don't know how much it is now, but it used to be, big chunk of money. Deepak Chopra does his own sort of meditation. There's all variations of the same
Right.
theme. But I think,
Right.
the, like I mentioned earlier, I like to make things very simple. I don't like complicated stuff. I
Right.
don't like complex ideas, because it turns people off. It's like, if it's too much, I don't want to deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the main thing is start. You can start now. You don't have to wait for a certain time, day, buy a meditation cushion, nothing, right? Wherever you are in the chair, just like we did, take 2 minutes to just tune into your body. That's the thing, is bring your mind into the zip code of where your body is, right? Our minds tend to be in a different zip code from our body all the time,
All the time. Yeah.
and so that's that whole being in the present, in the moment, being, no matter what the moment is. It could be horrible. You're going through some craziness. You've just heard some bad news. You just lost a loved one. You just got a bad diagnosis. It doesn't matter, because ultimately those are the moments of our life. being in the moment with it as is, not trying to change anything. You're not trying to change anything here. You're just being there without judgment, with a lot of compassion, love, you know, and just sit with this amazing miracle we've been given called breathing. Can you imagine if human beings were put in charge of breathing? We would all be dead by now.
That's true.
It's a good thing it goes on whether our mind is still or there, or we're sleeping or we're awake. Thank God we're not in charge of our own breathing. You know, and Avishkar, if you remember our physiology lessons from, first year medical students, breathing is probably the only function, or I shouldn't even say probably, it's the only human function that happens both unconsciously and that
Right.
you can
And
control
conscious,
consciously.
exactly. Yeah.
You can't control your heart rate. You can't
Right.
control, the growth of your nails. You can't control how fast your hair grows. The
Or you
one
lose it, how
thing you
fast you
can
lose it.
control is breathing, which is it's such a fascinating topic to me, and we don't pay enough attention and focus on it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think the key is to get started, not go into sort of an analysis paralysis of which type of meditation is the best. There is no best.
That's right.
Um, as long as you start and you start doing it, and it's just like starting anything in life. You
Exactly.
start a process. You have to just take the first step,
Exactly.
and things just fall into place as you go along.
Right.
Right.
And the one thing I'll point out, when do we start things? When do we start a habit? Is when we are in pain, right? Or when
Right.
when we want to achieve something, But usually, even when we want to achieve something, is usually we've hit a pain point in our life, and a lot of times, and right now there's so much pain in this world. There's so much stress going on, right? Like people say, "Oh, I don't want to start when I'm going through all the craziness in my life right now." And you know what I say? That is the best time to start. The best motivator in our life,
Yeah,
unfortunately, is pain.
that's
When we are
true.
suffering is when we're like, I got to do something right now, right? When you go to the doctor and the doctor says you have a diagnosis of, lung cancer. How many people quit smoking when they get that diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody who's been gaining weight gradually, talking about obesity, it's been kind of slowly packing on the pounds, and you go to the doctor's office and they're like, guess what? You have diabetes now. You have
Right.
heart disease. Or they come into the hospital with a stroke and they're like, oh my God. So unfortunately, those are the moments that awaken humans that we need to change something in our life. And what I tell people is, don't wait for that moment. Don't wait
Right.
for that moment.
And yeah, and I think the other important part is consistency is key, because you have to kind of build that habit into yourself. Doing it once, twice, thrice is not the answer. You have to keep doing it and doing it, and so that it becomes a part of you and becomes a habit that you develop. And once you start doing that, and once it's a habit, then it's kind of comes naturally to you.
Right, right. And also, what will happen is when we do have those pain points in our lives, right? Because life is not easy for anybody. We know we're going to come across, it throws you curveballs all the time. Like, right now you might be feeling okay. You still probably have a job, your family's doing well, your health is good. This is also the time to start practicing this, because when that job falls through, or when you get a bad news or something, you have this cushion to fall back on, right? You have the mechanism to cope with it. You're more resilient.
Right.
I think that's why meditation is so powerful. It's you can do it when you're well, you can do it when you're unwell, but when things are not going so well in your life, it just gives you one extra tool to cope, to be resilient, to bounce
Yeah, I think
back.
and I think that's very important for people suffering from obesity as well, because if there are certain drastic shifts in whatever you're doing, for example, you lose a job, or you're suddenly even moving to another place, or even if there's a happy moment where you're getting married or whatever, any shift, a lot of times we see that people who are suffering from obesity will have that drastic change will cause them to gain their weight again, because it
Exactly.
takes time for them to adjust to the new environment and to the new emotional state. And I think that is where meditation may actually be helpful as well, because that is your place that you go to feel calm
Right,
and be more in control of yourself.
right. Exactly. Exactly. That's the connection is, like we said, the purpose. Okay, if there is a goal or a purpose, because I know we're looking for this thing. The goal or the purpose ultimately of meditation is you're able, whatever that you develop in there, when you're sitting on the cushion, you're able to take that off the cushion. You're able to take it into your real life. So that's the thing, like for example, we were talking about if you're training for a marathon, let's say, or you go on a diet, you have a very fixed goal. It's directly connected, right? Like if I train, then I can run that 5-mile marathon. If I, watch my diet, then I can lose that 20 pounds. There's a very direct connection. With meditation, the direct connection is not I'm becoming a better meditator. Like that's not the goal at all, right? The
Right.
goal is as I meditate, it's going to touch all these other aspects of my life such that I can make the decisions that are right for me. And
Right.
so that's the connection. It's an indirect goal. It's not a direct goal with meditation.
Yeah. So it's kind of like one thing that's going to help you in so many other spheres of your health and your
Absolutely.
well-being.
Oh, and your relationship too. Trust
Of
me.
course.
We have, just call it discussions with my husband. When tempers are frayed, you come back, and you go, wow, like what's important here to me, right? Like, I love this
Right.
man. Is it more important for me to be right? Is it more important for me to be kind, right?
Right.
So it literally touches every aspect of you. I mean, like I told you, Avishkar, this was not me 20 years ago, and just looking back, I mean, obviously there were a lot of factors. I won't say it was only meditation, right? I mean, we change as human
Sure.
beings. There's so many things that happen to us. But I would say that was probably one of the key things that made my life, like, so many aspects of my life just better. And so
Wow.
when you asked how quickly people can see the change, what I would say is you will be having changes, but your mind doesn't like connect that till retrospectively you look back and you go, wow, it's because I meditated,
This is what happened.
this is what happens. Yeah.
Okay. So, what are the resources that our listeners can use to learn more about meditation?
Oh my God, millions and millions. So that's the other problem, right, with the internet and with Google
Right.
is there's bad information, there's good information. The MBSR program it's a scientifically validated program by John Kabat-Zinn. He started this, oh gosh, I think almost 30 years ago. I don't know how long it's been going on, but he really made the connection of MBSR with chronic pain. There's many, many studies there that he's done and his colleagues have done that have shown the better management of chronic pain with mindfulness based stress reduction. There's programs and instructors all over the country. It's an 8-week program. It also has a little bit of like yoga incorporated into it. So that's a good resource to begin with if you want to like go the full hog. um, and I like my meditation teacher. I have to give her a shout out. Her name is Susan Piver, Piver, and she's got a bunch of YouTube videos, which are just great. She's very practical advice. She's a Buddhist, but she doesn't really bring in a lot of like Buddhist concepts unless you really want it. She makes it very accessible. It's not some woo-woo thing out there that somebody is practicing in the Himalayas, right? The woman in, I think she's in New York or Boston, she's on the East Coast, and just brings it right here, right now. How do you do it? And yeah, that's the instruction course that I took and got certified, and I practice to this day. So
Okay, great. And you also offer coaching sessions in mindfulness and meditation, right?
well, I do a bunch of different things. So I'm getting certified as a life coach, but I'm also getting certified as a money mindset coach because to me, the fascination of I'm actually going to be doing a talk here pretty soon between money and obesity, interestingly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's an interest. So it's like MMO, I guess. It's like money and meditation and obesity. I mean, there's a link, right? Like all our aspects are
Yeah.
linked. Um, so, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I was just asking if you offer coaching sessions,
Yes.
on mindfulness and meditation. So how can people reach out to you in case they want to learn from you, say, for example?
Yeah. Right. I'm still in the process of I have a website, but that was for my lifestyle medicine. So I'm pivoting now, and I am in the process of creating a website. But they can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Just put in Yashoda Bhaskar. Instagram is Yashoda Bhaskar MD.
Okay.
And that's probably the best way they can find me is through Facebook or Instagram.
Great, great. Listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, I invite you to go wherever you're listening to this episode and leave us a comment or review. Tell me what you love about this episode, or better yet, tell me what you want to hear more of in the future. Again, if you've had success with weight loss and are willing to share your story, please reach out to me at host@decodingobesity.com. So before we close, Yashoda, do you have any last words or any tips for our listeners?
I would say, give meditation a chance. Try to set aside some of those preconceived notions or things you might have heard from others that's preventing you from even just giving it a try. And I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised by the results you get in your overall life.
I think I'm going to start doing it. I've been putting it off for a while now.
Yeah. Well, I might do some group meditation coaching sessions, so stay tuned.
Great. Yeah, great. All right. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Yashoda, for all the insight into meditation that you've given us.
Thank you, Avishkar. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you.
And it was
Thank you.
good to be here.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Decoding Obesity podcast. Please remember, the information in this podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely of the host and his guests and do not constitute medical advice. Views and opinions on this show do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of any organization. And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening in. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.